2 weeks ago, my wife went to visit our daughter and son-in-law. I decided to surprise them and go too. When I approached the door of their house, a neighbor shouted, "Stop, I have something to tell you." 5 minutes later, the police arrived. The consequences turned everything upside down. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is, where you are now. The highway stretched ahead like a sentence I could not finish. Interstate 95 had never felt this long before, though I had driven it dozens of times over the years. My hands gripped the steering wheel harder than necessary. Knuckles pale against the black leather. The phone sat in the cup holder, screen dark, mocking me with its silence. 4 days. Elena never went 4 days without returning a call. I glanced at the phone again, knowing I would see nothing new, but checking anyway. Same unanswered texts, same voiceless delivered into the void. The last one I had left that morning sounded desperate, even to my own ears. "Elena, I am worried. Just let me know you are okay. Call me back, please." The surprise visit had seemed like a good idea yesterday. Drive to Charlotte, show up with flowers, take Sophia and Elena out for lunch somewhere nice. Make a day of it. But somewhere around mile marker 72, the surprise started feeling less like a gift and more like an emergency response. Exit signs counted down the distance. 50 miles to Charlotte, 45, 40. My mind kept circling back to the months before Sophia left for this visit. Elena's phone calls had changed. Not in frequency. She had always been good about checking in, but in content. Every conversation eventually steered toward money. The roof needed repairs. Marcus's construction work had slowed down. Could we help with the mortgage this month, and then more recently, questions that left a sour taste. "Dad, have you and Mom thought about updating your will, with property values changing and everything?" I had mentioned it to Sophia after that particular call. She was folding laundry in our bedroom, her movements unhurried and precise. "She is our daughter, Henry," she had said without looking up. "She is just going through a rough patch. We went through rough patches too. Remember?" I remembered, but something about Elena's tone felt different, calculated. Maybe I was just getting paranoid in my old age, seeing shadows where there was only ordinary family struggle. The exit for Charlotte appeared. I merged right, following the ramp into suburban sprawl. Strip malls and chain restaurants gave way to residential streets lined with identical 2-story homes. Elena's neighborhood looked the same as always. Tidy lawns, basketball hoops in driveways, minivans parked at careful angles. Her house stood at the end of a cul-de-sac. The lawn had been mowed recently, leaving perfect parallel stripes in the grass. No newspapers cluttered the driveway. Nothing seemed disturbed or wrong. I pulled up to the curb and killed the engine. For a moment, I just sat there. Maybe I had overreacted. Maybe Sophia had dropped her phone in Elena's pool, or left it in a restaurant, or simply gotten caught up in mother-daughter time and forgotten to charge it. Simple explanations existed. They had to. I got out and walked to the front door. The concrete path felt solid under my shoes. Normal. I reached for the doorbell and pressed it, hearing the chime echo inside the house. Waited. Counted to 30. Pressed it again. Nothing. I tried the door handle. Locked. Cupped my hands against the front window and peered through the glass. The living room looked empty. Furniture arranged exactly as I remembered from our last visit at Thanksgiving. No lights on. No movement. I pulled out my phone and dialed Elena's number. It rang 5 times, then dropped to voicemail, her cheerful recorded voice. "Hey, this is Elena. Can't get to the phone right now, but leave a message and I will call you back super soon." I did not leave a message. Instead, I tried Marcus. Same result. Straight to voicemail after several rings. His message was shorter, more businesslike. "Marcus Thompson, leave your name and number." The unease that had been building since Richmond crystallized into something sharper. Where were they? Elena knew I might visit. I had mentioned it vaguely during our last conversation. She always answered her phone. Always. "Excuse me. Wait." I turned. A man was hurrying across the lawn from the house next door, moving with purpose, late 40s, thinning hair, dressed in a polo shirt and khakis. His expression carried urgency that did not match the quiet suburban afternoon. "Are you family?" he called out, slightly breathless. "Are you Sophia's husband?" The question stopped me cold. How did this stranger know Sophia's name? He reached me and extended his hand. Though the gesture seemed automatic, something he did while his mind worked on more important matters. "I am David Lawson. I live next door." He pointed at the house he had emerged from. "Listen, I need to tell you something. About 10 days ago, something happened here." He glanced back at Elena's house, then at me, his jaw working as he chose his words. "There were screams," he said finally, "late at night. A woman's voice." My chest tightened. David did not wait for me to ask questions. The words came out in a rush, like he had been holding them in too long. "It was around 1 in the morning, maybe a little after, 10 days ago, June 12th. I remember because it was the night before my son's graduation. I heard screaming from this house." He gestured at Elena's front windows. "Not just yelling, screaming. A woman begging someone to call an ambulance, saying she needed help. I felt the ground shift beneath my feet, subtle but unmistakable. I got up, went to my front window." David continued. "Elena and Marcus came outside right there on the lawn. They were yelling back at the house, saying everything was fine, just a nightmare. No emergency. But that screaming," he shook his head. "That was not a nightmare. I have heard nightmares wake people up. This was terror." "What did you do?" The question came out hoarse. "I called emergency services anyway. Told them someone needed help at this address. Elena and Marcus saw me on my phone through the window and started waving at me to stop. But I had already made the call." He crossed his arms, defensive now, as if he expected me to criticize the decision. The paramedics arrived maybe 12 minutes later. They went inside with Elena and Marcus. When they came back out, they had a woman on a stretcher. She could barely lift her head. It was Sophia. The world narrowed to David's face, his mouth forming words that could not possibly be real. "She was barely conscious," he said. The paramedics were moving fast, checking her vitals, asking delicate questions. "Your daughter and her husband just stood there watching. Did not get in the ambulance. Did not even follow it to the hospital. They went back inside, and the next morning both their cars were gone. Have not seen them since." My hands were shaking. I looked down at them, surprised by the tremor, then back at David. "Which hospital?" "I do not know. I assumed," he faltered. "I assumed family would handle it, that someone would contact you." I pulled out my phone, dialed Elena again. Voicemail, Marcus, voicemail. Then I called emergency services, forcing my voice steady as I identified myself, and asked about ambulance calls to this address 10 days ago. The dispatcher put me on hold, Muzak played, incongruously cheerful. David stood watching me, his concern etched deeper now that he had said everything out loud. Emergency services, how can I help you? I am calling about an ambulance dispatched to 912 Pinecrest Drive on June 12th, I said. The patient was my wife, Sophia Bennett. I need to know which hospital she was taken to. Keys clicked on the other end. Carolinas Medical Center, sir. The call came in at 1:17 a.m. Thank you. I hung up and immediately dialed the hospital. 4 transfers. 4 different voices asking me to hold. Finally, a nurse in the ICU with a tired, professional tone. Sophia Bennett. Yes. She was admitted June 12th. Serious condition, but stable as of yesterday. What happened to her? I cannot provide details over the phone. Sir, you will need to come in person. Are you family? I am her husband. A pause. 3rd floor ICU. Ask for the charge nurse when you arrive. I lowered the phone. David was watching me, waiting. I am calling the police, I told him. This is not right. He nodded immediately. I will give a statement. Whatever you need. I dialed Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department, reported a possible crime, gave them the address, explained what David had witnessed. The officer on the line told me someone would meet me at the hospital. I was already moving toward my car. The hospital is on Blythe Boulevard, David called after me. Carolinas Medical Center. Take Highway 74 west. I will find it. I got in, started the engine, pulled away from the curb without looking back. The drive felt surreal. Traffic lights changed colors. People crossed streets with shopping bags and coffee cups, going about ordinary Thursdays while my entire world cracked open. What happened to Sophia? Why would Elena not call an ambulance for her own mother? Why did they run questions, multiplied faster than my speedometer climbed? Carolinas Medical Center rose against the skyline, all glass and concrete angles. I parked in the visitor lot, took the elevator to the 3rd floor, followed signs to the ICU. A woman in plain clothes was waiting near the nurse's station, detective's badge clipped to her belt. Mr. Bennett. She extended her hand. Detective Sarah Klein, CMPD. I got the call about your wife's situation. Where is she? Room 308. But I need to ask you some questions first. When did you last speak with Sophia? 2 weeks ago when she left to visit our daughter. We texted a few times after that. Then 4 days ago, she stopped responding. Klein wrote in a small notebook. And you did not know she was hospitalized. Nobody contacted me. I came here because I was worried. A neighbor told me what happened. Her expression shifted, professional mask slipping just enough to show something darker underneath. Your wife suffered severe poisoning, Mr. Bennett, combination of sedatives and heart medication. The dose was potentially lethal. She has been unconscious for most of the past 10 days. We have been trying to locate next of kin. The words landed like physical blows. My daughter and son-in-law were with her, I said slowly. The neighbor heard her screaming for help. They told him it was nothing. Then they disappeared. Does that sound like an accident to you? Detective? Klein's jaw tightened. Room 308. Go see your wife. I will be here when you are ready to talk. The ICU room was dim, curtains half drawn. Machines beeped steadily, monitoring vitals with mechanical precision. Sophia lay in the bed, tubes and wires connecting her to equipment I did not want to understand. Her face looked smaller than I remembered, skin pale against white pillows. I pulled a chair close and took her hand. It felt fragile, like bird bones. I am here now. I said quietly. The words were for her, even if she could not hear them. When you wake up, you will tell me what they did. And I promise you. My voice dropped lower, harder. I will make sure they answer for every second of this. Something shifted inside me. The shocked father evaporated. In his place, the prosecutor I had been for 35 years. The man who built cases brick by brick, who found patterns in chaos, who knew exactly how to make people accountable for their actions. Elena and Marcus had made a mistake. They left evidence. They left witnesses. They left their victim alive. And they had underestimated me. I did not leave the chair beside her bed. The nurses offered alternatives. A cot in the waiting room, a nearby hotel with a discount for families. But I refused. My hands stayed wrapped around Sophia's, feeling for any change, any sign she was coming back. Somewhere around 6 in the morning, her fingers twitched against my palm. I straightened, leaned closer. Her eyelids fluttered, struggling against whatever darkness held her. A nurse noticed, moved quickly to the monitors, checked readings, pressed a call button. Within minutes, a doctor arrived, pen light in hand, examining Sophia's responses with clinical efficiency. Her eyes opened, unfocused at first, pupils adjusting to the dim light. Then they found my face and held there. "Shh, Henry." The word came out rough, barely recognizable through the damage a ventilator tube leaves behind. "Where?" The nurse brought water, held the cup while Sophia took small sips. Her throat worked painfully, but gradually. Sound returned. "How long have I been here?" 10 days. The words felt inadequate. "You have been here 10 days. Her eyes widened, confusion bleeding into fear. I watched her trying to piece together time she had lost, reaching for memories that scattered like smoke. The doctor confirmed she was stable enough to talk. Detective Klein appeared shortly after, recording device in hand, expression professional but not unkind. Sophia described what she could remember, voice shaking through the account. Elena had made dinner on June 12th. Nothing fancy. Chicken with rice, salad, bread. About an hour after eating, something went wrong. Dizziness first, then nausea, then my heart racing so fast I could not catch my breath. I asked Elena to call an ambulance, Sophia said, staring at her hands. She said no, said it was just food poisoning, that I would feel better if I lay down. But it got worse. Everything was spinning, and my chest hurt so much. I thought. She stopped, swallowed. I begged her. I said, "Elena, please. Something is wrong with my heart." She just looked at Marcus. And he stood in front of the door, would not let me leave the room. I sat motionless, absorbing each word like a blow. I screamed for help, Sophia continued. I thought maybe someone outside would hear. Then everything went dark. I remember a voice through the window, someone calling out. But after that, nothing. Just waking up here now. Detective Klein stopped the recording, gave Sophia a moment before speaking. The toxicology shows levels of ambix and cardiol that would kill most people your age. Mrs. Bennett. Someone with medical knowledge would understand exactly what this combination does. This was not accidental. "What are those?" Sophia asked, though her face suggested she did not really want to know. "Sleeping medication and heart medication," Klein said. "Neither was prescribed to you. Do you know if Elena or Marcus had access to those drugs?" Sophia's forehead creased. There were pill bottles in their bathroom, I saw them when I first arrived. Marcus mentioned something about anxiety and trouble sleeping, but I did not pay much attention. The detective made notes, asked follow-up questions, established timeline details that would matter in court. I listened, building my own mental file of every fact, every inconsistency. "I need to conduct interviews," Klein said eventually. Elena Thompson and Marcus Thompson just returned to their Charlotte home. Apparently, they took a trip. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "I am coming with you," I said, already standing. Mr. Bennett, this is official police business given your relationship to the victim and the suspects. They are not suspects. They are criminals who tried to murder my wife." Klein's expression softened slightly, "which is exactly why you cannot be present during questioning. I understand your frustration, but we need to do this right. Let me handle it." She was correct, and I knew it. Decades in the prosecutor's office taught me the importance of clean investigations, untainted evidence. I sat back down. Hours passed. Sophia drifted in and out of sleep, exhausted by the effort of consciousness. I held her hand, watched machines track her vital signs, tried not to imagine Marcus standing between her and the door while she begged for help. Detective Klein returned late afternoon. Her expression told me everything before she spoke. "They admit Sophia was sick that night," she said, pulling up a chair. "But their story is that she took the pills herself, said she could not sleep, was stressed about family finances. They claimed they were about to call an ambulance when the neighbor, quote, interfered. They left for the Outer Banks the next day because the trip was pre-planned, and they did not realize how serious the situation was since the hospital said Sophia was stable." "That is a lie," Sophia's voice stronger now, but trembling with anger. "Shh. I believe you," Klein said, "but their story is coordinated, rehearsed. A defense attorney could argue the poisoning caused confusion, affected your memory of events. Right now, it is your word against theirs. We need more." After she left, I sat in silence. 35 years in the prosecutor's office had prepared me for this moment, though I had never imagined applying that knowledge to my own family. Investigation takes months. Evidence is circumstantial. Even if charges are filed, conviction is not guaranteed. And meanwhile, Elena and Marcus would walk free, acting innocent, telling their version to anyone who would listen. I looked at Sophia, frail and traumatized in the hospital bed. Then I pulled out my phone and scrolled through contacts until I found a name I had not called in years. Jonathan Reed, private investigator who had worked dozens of cases with me during my prosecutor days, digging up financial records and hidden connections that turned circumstantial cases into convictions. I pressed dial. "Jonathan, it is Henry Bennett. I need your help with something. It is personal." The coffee shop in Richmond was nearly empty on Monday morning. Jonathan Reed sat across from me, 4 file folders spread between our cups, his expression grim as he walked me through what he had found in just 3 days. "Your daughter made 52 calls to creditors in the past 4 months, he said, sliding the first folder forward. Collection agencies, credit card companies, mortgage servicers. Every account has passed due, most by 90 days or more. I opened the folder. Phone records, bank statements, credit reports, all the financial debris of a life falling apart. Marcus owed money everywhere. Online gambling sites, sports betting, poker rooms in Charlotte and Raleigh. The numbers kept climbing. 95,000 in credit card debt. Jonathan continued. Another $130,000 in gambling losses across various platforms. Their mortgage is 3 months overdue. Foreclosure proceedings started 2 weeks ago, and Elena knew all this. I asked, though I already suspected the answer. She called your estate attorney 5 weeks before the poisoning, June 7th. Asked about probate timelines. What happens when someone dies intestate versus with a will? Whether adult children automatically inherit. The attorney thought she was just curious about family planning. Jonathan paused. That is not curiosity, Henry. That is planning. I closed the folder, the pieces falling into a pattern I recognized from dozens of prosecutions. Financial desperation plus opportunity equals motive. But knowing it and proving it in court were different challenges. From the coffee shop, I drove to William Carter's office downtown. Carter had been my go-to for complex cases requiring civil litigation expertise, the kind of attorney who understood how to apply pressure from multiple angles. His office overlooked the James River, floor-to-ceiling windows framing sailboats drifting across blue water. Carter sat behind his desk reading Jonathan's report with the focused intensity that made him successful. Criminal court requires proof beyond reasonable doubt, he said finally. The DA might struggle with that given the coordinated alibi and Sophia's memory gaps. But civil court, preponderance of evidence, 51%. We can prove this on civil grounds even if criminal charges fail, and we can make their lives very uncomfortable in the process. What are you suggesting? Wrongful injury lawsuit, emotional distress, medical expenses. We freeze their assets during discovery, force them to answer questions under oath, expose every financial motive to the criminal investigators. Civil litigation can be a powerful weapon when used strategically. He leaned back, fingers steepled. And I assume you want this done aggressively. I want it done correctly, I said. But yes, aggressively. Carter smiled. Not warmth, but recognition of shared purpose. I will have papers drawn up by end of day. My next stop was the estate attorney's office, a smaller practice near Carytown. Robert Hayes had handled our wills 6 years ago. Straightforward documents that left everything to each other, then to Elena after we both passed. I need changes, I told him after explaining the situation. Remove Elena completely. Everything goes to Sophia, then to Charity if she predeceases me, and add language that if Elena contests this will, she forfeits any claim whatsoever. Robert's pen moved across legal pad, taking notes. You want a no-contest clause standard practice when there is concern about challenges. I can have a revised will ready for signature tomorrow. Today, I said, I will wait. He nodded, understanding the urgency without needing explanation. Back home that evening, Sophia sat in our living room, discharged from the hospital earlier that day. She looked smaller than I remembered, wrapped in a blanket despite Richmond's heat. I had shown her Jonathan's report over dinner, or tried to. She had put the folder down after 4 pages. She called about the will 5 weeks before this happened. Her voice was hollow, processing facts that contradicted everything she had believed about our daughter. She actually planned it. The evidence suggests so. I kept telling you she was just going through a rough time, that she would never. Sophia's hands trembled slightly. I was so wrong. I sat beside her, careful not to touch her without permission. Hospital experiences leave invisible boundaries. You were not wrong to love your daughter. She was wrong to betray that love. We sat in silence for several minutes. Then Sophia straightened, something hardening in her expression. What is the next step? I explained Carter's strategy, the civil lawsuit, the asset freeze, the discovery process that would expose everything. Sophia listened without interruption, then nodded once. Do it. Tuesday morning. I called Elena's number. She answered on the third ring, voice carefully bright. Dad, how is Mom doing? I have been so worried. Your mother needs family right now. I interrupted, keeping my tone neutral. I think we should talk, all of us together face to face. Can you and Marcus come to Richmond this weekend? We need to work through what happened. A pause. I could almost hear her calculating, deciding how to play this. Of course, she said finally. We want to help however we can. Sunday work. Sunday is perfect. Come around 1. After I hung up, I signed the authorization form for Carter's lawsuit. Wednesday morning, Elena and Marcus would be served with papers. But first, I wanted to see their faces when they thought they had gotten away with it. The pen felt heavy in my hand as I wrote my name. Not regret, just recognition of the moment when everything would change. The civil complaint sat on my desk. 42 pages of allegations that read like an indictment, which in a sense it was. William Carter had done excellent work. Every charge supported by medical records. Every dollar of damages calculated precisely. $2.5 million in compensatory and punitive damages for attempted murder. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Medical expenses approaching $250,000. Carter's voice came through the speakerphone. We file within the hour. Once the process server delivers this to their door, there is no walking it back. You certain about this? File it, I said. Understood. I will call you after service is complete. I hung up and pictured the scene. Process server approaching Elena's house, knocking on the door, handing over the thick manila envelope, her opening it, scanning the first page, seeing the words attempted murder and $2.5 million in bold type. The satisfaction I felt was cold, methodical. This was step 1. The call came 4 hours later. Not from Carter, but from Elena. I let it ring 3 times before answering, keeping my voice level. Yes. $2.5 million. Her scream came through sharp enough to hurt. Dad, have you lost your mind? This is insane. It was an accident. Mom took those pills herself because she could not sleep. You are ruining our lives over a misunderstanding. The same rehearsed explanation she had given the detective. I let her continue, listening for inconsistencies, cataloging every claim. We were trying to help her. She was stressed about money, about the house, and she took too many pills. We were about to call for help when that nosy neighbor interfered. Now you are suing us. Your own daughter. She paused for breath. I spoke into the silence. You had a choice that night. Elena, when your mother was screaming for help, begging you to call an ambulance. You made a choice. You chose to let her suffer. Now you will answer for that choice in court. Her tone shifted instantly from hysteria to fury. You are destroying my life over nothing. We are your family. Family does not let family die for inheritance money. I ended the call. 25 minutes passed before my phone rang again. Marcus this time, I answered without greeting. His voice came out careful, modulated, the tone of someone trying to negotiate a business deal. Henry, listen. I know this looks bad, but we can work this out. Right family should handle things privately. What if there is a way to make this go away? We could agree to certain terms, maybe some financial arrangement. I walked to the window, looked out at Richmond's downtown skyline, while Marcus's desperate pitch continued. When he finally stopped, I responded, "You are offering me money with what, the 95,000 you owe on credit cards, the 130,000 in gambling debts, or were you planning to use the inheritance you thought you would get when Sophia died?" Silence. Then in a voice stripped of its careful tone, what are you talking about?" I did not answer the question. "There is no deal, Marcus. See you in court." Another hang-up. Detective Klein called that afternoon. "We executed the search warrant this morning. Found some interesting items." "Go on." Empty prescription bottle in the master bathroom medicine cabinet. Ambic sleeping pills prescribed to Marcus 4 months ago. 30 pills. Bottle completely empty, and his fingerprints are all over it. She paused. "But here's the real evidence. Marcus's laptop. Browser history from 4 weeks before the poisoning. Searches for cardiol overdose symptoms and lethal sleeping pill dose. He researched exactly what happened to your wife before it happened. That is premeditation. Mr. Bennett." I made notes while she talked. Prosecutor shorthand covering the legal pad. Dates, search terms, prescription details, the timeline of planning. "Sir, the DA is preparing arrest warrants," Klein continued. "Attempted murder first degree for both of them, plus conspiracy and obstruction for the false statements. We are moving on this tonight. Keep me informed." "We will." The second call from Klein came at 8 that evening. "They are in custody. Both arrested at home an hour ago. Being processed now. Bail hearings tomorrow morning. But given the charges and their financial situation creating flight risk, bond will be set high." Sophia was beside me, holding my hand. She had heard everything through the speaker. Her eyes were wet, but no tears fell. "Is it wrong that I feel relieved?" she asked quietly. I squeezed her hand. "No, it means justice is working." My phone buzzed with a text from Carter. "Arrest warrants executed. Civil case now has criminal charges backing it. Asset freeze motion hearing scheduled for 4 days from now. We are winning." I read the message, then looked at Sophia. She was staring at a framed photo on the side table. Elena, at age 8, gap-toothed smile sitting on my shoulders at Virginia Beach. Sophia reached for it, hesitated with her fingers an inch from the frame, then deliberately turned it face down. "I cannot look at her right now," she whispered. I nodded. Neither could I. The bail hearing happened Thursday morning. Elena and Marcus appeared via video link from the county jail, both in orange jumpsuits that looked deliberately humiliating on camera. The judge set bond at $300,000 each. High, but not insurmountable. By Friday afternoon, they had posted bail through a bondsman, pledging their house as collateral. By Saturday, they had retained Anthony Morales. Morales' reputation preceded him. Former public defender turned high-profile criminal attorney, known for aggressive tactics and media manipulation. His strategy became clear within hours of taking the case. The Richmond Times-Dispatch ran the story on Sunday morning. Front page below the fold. Father sues daughter for $2.5 million after alleged poisoning. Defense claims tragic accident. The article presented both sides with careful neutrality. But the photo told a different story. Elena looking exhausted and fragile. Tears visible on her cheeks. No photo of Sophia in the hospital bed. Monday brought the real attack. The Times-Dispatch published a follow-up interview. Elena and Marcus sitting in their living room, speaking directly to a reporter about the tragic misunderstanding tearing their family apart. I read it at the kitchen table while Sophia prepared breakfast. Elena described a wonderful visit with her mother that took a terrible turn when Sophia became anxious about finances and took sleeping pills without telling anyone. Marcus explained they were moments away from calling for help when the neighbor panicked unnecessarily. Both expressed shock and hurt that Henry refused to believe them, choosing instead to destroy his own daughter's life with false accusations. The article included quotes from their attorney. Morales positioned them as victims twice over, first of Sophia's accidental overdose, now of Henry's vindictive lawsuit fueled by paranoia rather than evidence. Listen to this. I said to Sophia, Morales claims we are weaponizing the legal system to punish grief-stricken family members who made difficult decisions in a crisis. Sophia sat down her coffee cup harder than necessary. Difficult decisions. They watched me beg for help and did nothing. I know. Then why does reading this make me feel like we are the ones who did something wrong? Because that was exactly what Morales wanted. Shape the narrative before trial. Make the jury pool question whether attempted murder was really just panic and poor judgment. Classic defense strategy. My phone started ringing that afternoon. Friends. Mostly former colleagues from the prosecutor's office. People who had known me for decades, calling with carefully worded questions. Thomas Jenkins, retired judge, spoke with diplomatic caution. Henry, I saw the article. Obviously, I know there are two sides to every story, but have you considered that maybe emotions are running high? Family disputes can feel clearer than they actually are. I explained the evidence. Browser history, prescription bottle, financial motive. Thomas listened, made sympathetic sounds, but I heard doubt in the pauses. Laura Mitchell, who had worked as victim advocate during my prosecutor years, tried a different approach. I am not questioning your judgment, but is it possible Sophia's memory was affected by the trauma? Sometimes victims fill gaps with assumptions that feel like certainties. More phone calls followed, each one carefully supportive on the surface, questioning underneath. The media campaign was working. Carter called Tuesday morning with news. Morales filed a countersuit. They are suing you and Sophia for defamation, claiming your false accusations have destroyed Elena's reputation and Marcus's construction business, asking for $600,000. That is absurd. Of course, it is. It is harassment litigation meant to create leverage, make you back down. But combined with the media coverage, he is building a narrative that might resonate with a jury. We need to be ready for this to get uglier. The asset freeze hearing was scheduled for Thursday. Carter explained the strategy. We would present evidence of financial motive. Argue that Elena and Marcus might hide or transfer assets to avoid paying damages. The court could freeze their accounts, prevent property transfers, protect our eventual judgment. But first, we had to survive the pressure. Wednesday afternoon, I ran into Patrick Walsh at the grocery store. Patrick had been in my book club for 16 years. He saw me, hesitated visibly, then approached with an expression I had seen before on witnesses who did not want to testify. Henry, how are you holding up managing? I read about everything in the paper. Must be difficult. He shifted his weight, looked at the floor. Listen, I do not want to overstep, but have you thought about mediation? Sometimes these family things, they seem clearer when you are angry. Maybe there is room for, Patrick, my daughter tried to kill my wife for inheritance money. That is not a misunderstanding. His face flushed. Of course not. I am just saying. Well, the article made it sound more complicated than the article was written by Elena's defense attorney. Right, sure, He trailed off. Then I hope it works out. He left quickly, abandoning his half-full cart. That evening, Sophia found me at my desk reviewing evidence files. She sat down across from me, her expression steady despite the exhaustion visible in her eyes. "People are questioning you," she said. "Not a question. Some are. Do you doubt yourself?" I looked at her, still fragile from the ordeal, still recovering, but clearer-eyed than I had seen her in weeks. "Sometimes," I admitted. "When enough people suggest you are wrong, you start wondering." "Then let me be clear." Sophia said, "I begged our daughter for help while I was dying and she refused. That is not complicated. That is not a misunderstanding. That is attempted murder." She leaned forward. "Do not let them make you forget what actually happened." The doubt did not disappear entirely, but her certainty steadied something inside me. Thursday's hearing would tell us whether the court saw things as clearly as we did. Detective Klein's call came Thursday morning while I was reviewing case files at the kitchen counter. "Marcus cracked," she said without preamble. "During this morning's follow-up interview, I was pushing on inconsistencies between his statement and Elena's, asking whose idea certain things were, and he just broke." I grabbed a pen, started taking notes. "What did he say?" Quote, "It was my idea to solve our financial problems." Okay, but Elena agreed. She knew what we were doing. Then his attorney jumped in, demanded we stop, but it was already on tape. I underlined the words on my notepad. "My idea." Elena agreed. She knew. "That is premeditation," I said. "And conspiracy." "Exactly. Their defense just collapsed from the inside." After hanging up, I called William Carter. He had already heard from his sources at the DA's office, but he had additional information about what happened after Marcus's slip. Morales pulled them both into a conference room at the station. Carter said, "Tried to have a private conversation about damage control. According to the officers standing outside." Elena's voice carried right through the door. She was screaming at Marcus, calling him weak, asking how he could be so stupid to say that to police. And Marcus yelled back that she wanted the money just as much as he did, that she helped plan everything. So why should he take the fall alone? Morales could not control them. They turned on each other right there. Carter paused. "Two defendants blaming each other is a prosecutor's dream. Henry, you know that." I did. I had built cases on exactly this kind of fracture during my career. Pressure defendants until loyalty gives way to self-preservation. It always worked. Eventually. Carter called again that afternoon with a proposal. The DA's office wants to make a tactical move. They will extend an offer to Marcus through his attorney. Reduced charges in exchange for full testimony against Elena. Conspiracy instead of attempted murder. 9 to 11 years instead of 18 to 25. Marcus is the weak point, I said, thinking through the strategy. He is already cracking, already terrified. His gambling addiction, his pattern of poor decisions under pressure. He will take the deal, but we need your authorization to coordinate with the DA. I walked to the study window, looked out at Richmond's afternoon light. Using Marcus to convict Elena felt calculated, manipulative. But then I remembered Sophia's account. Marcus standing in front of the door while she begged for help, blocking her escape. The methodical cruelty of that moment. "Make the offer," I said. The offer reached Marcus the next morning. Carter reported that Marcus was seriously considering it despite Morales' advice to fight at trial. Morales argued that turning on Elena would make Marcus look worse to a jury. But Marcus was caught between fear of prison and fear of being labeled a traitor. He asked for 72 hours to decide. While Marcus deliberated, Elena made her own move. She retained a separate attorney, a woman named Jennifer Brooks, citing conflict of interest. Morales could not represent both defendants if their interests diverged. Brooks immediately filed a motion suggesting Marcus was the primary actor, and Elena had been coerced or manipulated by an abusive husband. Carter explained it to me over the phone, with something approaching dark admiration. It is legally weak given the evidence, but it shows she is ruthless. She is willing to destroy Marcus completely to save herself, fighting like someone with nothing to lose, which she does not. I said, exactly. That evening, I sat with Sophia in the living room and explained the developments. Marcus's slip during interrogation, the plea offer, Elena's counter-strategy of blaming everything on him. Sophia listened without interruption, then asked a question that surprised me. If Marcus testifies against Elena, will she definitely be convicted? I considered it honestly. Not definitely, but probably. His testimony combined with the laptop evidence, the prescriptions, your account. It builds a very strong case. She nodded slowly. Then I hope he takes the deal. Not because I want Marcus to suffer less, but because I want to be absolutely certain Elena is held accountable. The clarity in her voice reminded me why I was doing this. Not for revenge, though that element existed. For certainty. For making sure what happened to her carried permanent consequences. My phone rang late that night, past midnight. Carter's number on the screen. Marcus's attorney just called, he said, voice tight with controlled excitement. He is taking the deal. Full testimony, complete cooperation, every detail. He is giving us Elena on a silver platter. I closed my eyes, absorbed the information. Across the room, Sophia looked at me questioningly. I covered the phone. Marcus is testifying against her. Sophia's expression did not change, but her hand gripped the armrest of her chair, knuckles visible against the fabric. Carter continued. We are scheduling his deposition for 4 days from now. Once he is on record, Elena's defense is finished. She will know it too. After hanging up, I sat in silence with Sophia. Neither of us spoke for several minutes. Finally, she said what we were both thinking. It is really happening. Yes, I said, it is. The asset freeze motion filed Tuesday morning. I had spent the previous day coordinating with Carter, reviewing the financial analysis Jonathan Reed had prepared. Every debt, every late payment, every desperate cash advance in the 7 months before the poisoning. The documents showed a family drowning and grasping for the inheritance that would save them. The hearing happened Thursday afternoon. Judge Ramirez presided, reviewing the evidence with the methodical attention judges give to financial matters. Carter presented our case, $30,000 in combined debts, foreclosure proceedings initiated, Elena's call to the estate attorney 5 weeks before the poisoning. The pattern was undeniable. Elena's attorney, Jennifer Brooks, argued that freezing assets would prevent them from paying their mortgage, essentially guaranteeing foreclosure. Carter responded that they had already stopped making payments 4 months ago. The freeze merely formalized what was already happening. Judge Ramirez granted the motion. All bank accounts frozen. No property transfers permitted. The house they had pledged for bail was now untouchable, locked in legal limbo. They are financially paralyzed. Carter told me afterward. Cannot sell, cannot borrow, cannot access savings. Everything they have is frozen until the civil case resolves. Marcus's deposition was scheduled for Saturday. I did not attend. Carter advised against it, said my presence might complicate things. Instead, I waited at home while Carter and the DA's assistant handled it. He called me Saturday evening with the summary. Marcus gave us everything. Carter said, 51 pages of testimony. He described researching the drugs online, finding the prescription bottle from his anxiety treatment, forging a second prescription for cardiol by using his doctor's pad during an appointment. He explained mixing both medications into Sophia's chicken sauce, and he detailed every conversation with Elena, how they discussed it for months, how she agreed it was the only solution to their debts, how she watched him add the drugs and said nothing. She was complicit, I said. More than complicit. She was a co-conspirator. Marcus's testimony makes that absolutely clear. And before you ask, yes, we have corroboration. The laptop searches, the prescription forgery attempt we found in medical records, Sophia's account of Elena refusing to call for help. Marcus's testimony does not stand alone. It is supported by everything else. That evening, Detective Klein called with another update. Based on Marcus's testimony, the DA filed additional charges against Elena, not just attempted murder, but also conspiracy to commit murder and accessory after the fact. An arrest warrant was issued Saturday night. Elena was taken into custody Sunday morning. This time, bail was denied. Monday brought an unexpected development. An email from Jennifer Brooks arrived in my inbox. Subject line, confidential settlement discussion. I read it standing at my desk. Brooks wrote on Elena's behalf, suggesting that perhaps there was room for resolution short of trial. Elena was willing to plead to lesser charges, maybe reckless endangerment instead of attempted murder. In exchange, we dropped the civil lawsuit. She emphasized that Elena was still Henry's daughter, that families should find ways to heal rather than destroy each other. I stared at the screen for 40 seconds. Then I deleted the email. Sophia found me there a few minutes later. What was that about? Elena's attorney suggesting we accept a plea deal and drop the lawsuit. What did you tell her? Nothing. I deleted it. Sophia sat down across from me. Good. Do not let her pretend this can be negotiated away. She tried to kill me for money. That is not something you compromise on. Tuesday morning, I forwarded a screenshot of the deleted email to William Carter with a simple message: no deals, no compromise. We proceed to trial on all charges. Carter responded immediately. Understood. I will communicate that to the DA's office. Elena's attorney will get the message. The civil lawsuit continued its parallel track with the asset freeze in place and Elena facing upgraded criminal charges. Carter filed additional motions. One sought to establish joint and several liability, meaning if we won the civil case, Marcus would be responsible for the full $2.5 million, even though he had taken a plea deal. The criminal reduction did not absolve civil responsibility. That same day, the bank accelerated foreclosure proceedings on Elena and Marcus's house, with no mortgage payments for 4 months and assets frozen. Preventing any payment, the bank moved to seize the property. Notice to vacate was issued. 45 days to remove belongings. I heard about it from Jonathan Reed, who was still monitoring their financial situation. They are losing everything, he said. House, savings, any equity they had. The civil judgment will attach to anything that is left, which at this point is basically nothing. They gambled everything and lost, I said, not with satisfaction, just mechanical observation of consequences. The following week moved quickly. Marcus's formal plea agreement was signed on July 5th. He allocuted in court, admitted under oath to conspiracy to commit attempted murder, detailed his and Elena's plan, accepted 9 years in prison. The judge accepted the plea. Elena's preliminary hearing was scheduled for July 13th. Based on Marcus's testimony, the laptop evidence, Sophia's account, and the prescription forgery, the judge would decide if there was sufficient cause to proceed to trial. Carter assured me it was a formality. The evidence was overwhelming, but Elena would be there in court. For the first time since her arrest, I would have to see her face. Friday night, July 6th. Sophia and I sat on our back porch. Fireworks exploded in the distance. Neighbors celebrating. We watched in silence. "Are you ready for next week?" Sophia asked. "For the hearing." I thought about it. Seeing Elena in the defendant's chair. Hearing the charges read aloud. Watching her realize how completely her plan had failed. "Yes," I said, "I am ready." The story broke wide on July 9th. I was having morning coffee with Sophia when the local Richmond station led with it. Daughter and son-in-law charged in poisoning plot. Inheritance motive alleged. The coverage was different this time. No careful neutrality. No both sides framing. Just evidence. Courthouse footage showed Elena and Marcus being processed. The anchor detailed the forged prescriptions, the laptop searches, the $2 million inheritance calculation. A legal expert appeared, grave-faced, calling it one of the most cold-blooded cases in recent Virginia history. My phone started buzzing. People I had not heard from in weeks. The same friends who had questioned my judgment after Morales's media campaign. Now they were calling to apologize, to express shock, to say they had no idea the evidence was so damning. I did not answer most of them. Jonathan Reed called mid-morning with updates on Elena and Marcus's professional situations. "The real estate agency cut ties this morning," he said. "Public statement expressing sympathy for your wife and distancing themselves completely from Elena's alleged criminal activities. Marcus was fired last week by the construction company, moral turpitude clause, and his parents released a statement disavowing him." I took notes while he talked, treating each detail as case information rather than victory. Employment terminated. Professional reputation destroyed. Family relationships severed. Consequences. Not revenge. "They are both completely isolated now," Jonathan said. "No jobs, no social circle, no family support." Over the next few days, I learned more through various sources. Former friends stopped returning their calls. Neighbors avoided them in public. The statement from Marcus's parents was particularly cold. "We are devastated by our son's actions and choices. We support the victims in this tragedy and have no further relationship with Marcus." Formal, absolute, final, I understood it. They were protecting themselves from association, drawing a public line between themselves and their son's crimes. It is what parents do when their child becomes a monster. I wondered if outsiders saw Sophia and me the same way. Parents who had somehow produced a daughter capable of murder. 10 days after Elena's arrest, I found a letter in the mailbox. Not through attorneys, directly mailed. I recognized Elena's handwriting on the envelope immediately. Sophia saw me holding it. From her, I nodded. We went inside. I opened it at the kitchen table while Sophia sat across from me. 4 pages handwritten. Elena's voice bled through every line. "Dad, please, I know what this looks like. I know what I did was wrong. But everything spiraled out of control. The debts, the pressure, Marcus's gambling. I was not thinking clearly. I never meant for Mom to actually die. I panicked. I am so sorry. I have always loved you both. You are my parents. Please, is not there a way to fix this? Can we not be a family again?" The letter continued in that vein. Part confession, part excuse, part desperate plea. I read it twice, looking for genuine remorse. I found only self-pity and manipulation. She was still framing herself as a victim of circumstances rather than the architect of attempted murder. I slid the pages across the table to Sophia without comment. She read in silence, then looked up. "What will you do?" I went to my desk and wrote a response by hand. 1 page, brief. "Elena, you had a choice that night. You chose to watch your mother die rather than call for help. You chose money over her life. These were your decisions made with clear intent. As the evidence shows, there is no fixing this. There is no family to return to. My attorney handles all future communication." I signed it, sealed it, and prepared it for delivery through William Carter's office. No direct contact, no opening for negotiation or emotion. Carter called that afternoon with another update. "Civil trial is scheduled for July 18th, 6 days from now. With the criminal being finalized, the judge wants quick resolution. We will get the full judgment. $2 million. They will never pay it. Of course. They are filing bankruptcy. The point is not the money," I said. "I know. It is the public record. Official acknowledgement of what they did and what they owe. Follows them forever." That evening, I sat in my study reviewing the civil case file one final time. Documentation of everything. Medical bills totaling $245,000. Sophia's suffering quantified in hospital days and therapy sessions. Lost time measured in weeks of unconsciousness and months of recovery. Behind me, the door opened quietly. Sophia stood there stronger now, steady on her feet without the hesitation I had seen weeks ago. "The trial is in 6 days, she said. I nodded. She crossed the room, sat in the chair beside my desk. The same position we had held through this entire ordeal. Partners in prosecution. "Will you need to testify?" I asked. She considered it. "If it helps make sure they are held accountable, yes. I will do whatever is necessary." Her voice carried no fear now, only resolve. I reached for her hand. She took it. The courtroom on July 13th was smaller than I had expected for what the media had called one of Central Virginia's most shocking cases. Judge Larson presided, her expression neutral as the clerk called the matter. State of Virginia versus Elena Thompson and Marcus Thompson. Elena entered first, wearing a navy suit that looked borrowed, probably from her new attorney. Her face was drawn, eyes red from what I assumed were sleepless nights, or tears, or both. Marcus followed, separate from her physically and legally now. His plea agreement had already been signed, but he was present for Elena's arraignment. The charges were read aloud. Conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree, attempted murder in the first degree, obstruction of justice. Each charge carried its own weight, its own maximum sentence. Added together, they meant Elena faced 30 years to life. Her attorney, Jennifer Brooks, entered a plea of not guilty, standard procedure, even when the evidence was overwhelming. The trial date was set for October 15th, 3 months away. But as we left the courthouse, Carter pulled me aside. "The DA thinks Elena will change her plea before trial, once she sees Marcus's full testimony and discovery. Once she understands how completely the evidence destroys her defense, she will take whatever deal they offer. Nobody wants to face a jury with this case." He was right. 4 weeks later, on August 10th, Elena accepted a plea agreement, guilty to attempted murder in the second degree. 18 years minimum, possibility of parole after 15. The judge accepted the plea on August 14th. I was in the courtroom for the sentencing. Sophia was beside me. We sat in the second row, close enough to see Elena's face when the judge spoke. Miss Thompson, you planned and executed an attempt to murder your own mother for financial gain." Judge Larson said, "You researched the methods. You obtained the means. And when your victim was dying, begging for help, You refuse to act. The only reason your mother is alive today is because a neighbor had the decency and courage you lacked. Elena's shoulders shook. Tears fell. But whether from remorse or self-pity, I could not tell. 18 years in state prison. The judge continued. You will be eligible for parole after 15, but that is not guaranteed. It depends entirely on whether you demonstrate genuine rehabilitation and remorse, qualities I saw no evidence of today. The gavel fell. Elena was remanded immediately. I watched officers escort her out through the side door. She did not look back at us. Maybe she could not. Maybe she knew there was nothing left to see. Marcus's sentencing happened the same day. Despite his cooperation, the judge gave him 9 years, acknowledging his testimony, but noting that he was the primary actor, the one who actually administered the poison. He would be released in 2034 if he served his full term without parole. The civil trial was almost anticlimactic after the criminal convictions. With guilty pleas, the civil judgment was a formality. Carter presented our case on August 20th. Medical expenses, pain and suffering, emotional distress, the permanent impact on Sophia's health. The defense offered no real contest. What could they say? Judge Ramirez awarded us $2 million, the full amount we had requested. Collecting it was impossible. Elena and Marcus had both filed bankruptcy. Their house had been foreclosed and sold at auction. Bank accounts were empty. Future earnings would be garnished. But prison wages barely covered commissary. Oh, we will never see a dollar of it, Carter admitted afterward. But it is on record. Public acknowledgement of harm done and debt owed. If either of them ever earns money, inheritance, lottery, book deal, whatever, we can pursue it. The judgment does not expire. That night, Sophia made dinner. Simple chicken. Not the dish Elena had poisoned, but close enough that the parallel was not lost on either of us. We ate in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from shared understanding rather than empty conversation. Do you regret any of it? She asked after we had cleaned up. The lawsuits, the prosecution, cutting her off completely. I thought about it honestly. No, I protected you. I made sure they faced consequences. I would make every choice again. Even knowing she is your daughter. Especially knowing that she used family as cover for attempted murder. That makes it worse, not better. Sophia nodded slowly. I feel the same way. I thought I might feel guilt or doubt by now, but I do not. Just relief that it is finished. We stood at the window in our living room, looking out at Richmond's evening lights. The city continued its normal rhythm. People heading home from work, cars streaming along the highway, life proceeding as it always had. But for us, everything had changed. Not in obvious ways. We still lived in the same house, still had the same daily routines, but the foundation underneath had shifted. We had faced something most people never encounter: betrayal from within the family, an attempt on life from someone who should have protected it. And we had survived, more than survived. We had ensured accountability, built protections, created consequences. The inheritance Elena had tried to murder for would never touch her hands. Our wills now directed everything to charity. The house she had counted on inheriting would benefit strangers instead. Was it worth it? Sophia asked quietly. Everything we lost. We did not lose everything. I said, we lost a daughter who was willing to kill you. That is not a loss. That is removal of a threat. She leaned against me. I suppose you are right. September turned to October. Life resumed its patterns. Sophia continued physical therapy, Regaining strength she had lost during the hospitalization, I returned to occasional consulting work, helping young prosecutors with complex cases. We had dinner with friends who had stood by us through everything. The media moved on to other stories. Elena and Marcus became footnotes, cautionary tales about greed and family betrayal, but no longer headlines. Sometimes I thought about the daughter I had raised, the child who had sat on my shoulders at the beach, who had called me for advice, who had once been someone I trusted completely. That person was gone, had been gone for a long time. Probably, I had just been too close to see it. What remained was a woman in prison serving 18 years for attempting to murder her mother. That was the truth of what she had become. Accepting it was not easy, but it was necessary. One evening in mid-October, Sophia and I stood at the same window where we had stood after the civil trial. The view had not changed. The city lights still spread below us, indifferent to our story. Do you think about her? Sophia asked. Sometimes, I admitted. Mostly I think about what might have happened if David had not called for help. If you died that night, and they had gotten away with it. But that did not happen. No, because we fought back. Because we refused to let them rewrite the story. Sophia turned to face me. Thank you for believing me, for fighting for me, for not letting family loyalty override the truth. I took her hand. You are my family. You are who I protect. We stood together in the gathering darkness, survivors of something that should have destroyed us, but did not. The wound would never fully heal. Scars like this do not fade, but we had ensured that the people who caused it paid the appropriate price. That was enough. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.